Right, it's time to talk European T20 League. Brand new league sanctioned by the ICC. It'll run from the 15th of July to the 3rd of August. Includes 6 teams based in Dublin, Belfast, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Edinburgh and Glasgow. It's an extremely exciting, ambitious project. Initially, it'll be up against the English T20 season, the 100, the MLC and the CPL. But I'm delighted to say that we're joined by Cricket Ireland Chief Executive Warren Deutrom and Abhishek Bachchan, co-owner of the European T20 League. He's got extensive experience in sports management in other sports. Gentlemen, we've got a massive list of questions. But can I don't know, I'll leave it up to you to who starts. Give us an overview, because the European League's, it's had a false start, hasn't it? Maybe even a couple of false starts, but this time it looks like all cylinders go.
Yeah, we've said, I'll start if that's okay. Just to give you the overview, it is across 3 countries. So the ICC gave us a sanction back in October time for the league, and it's going to be across 3 countries. You've outlined it's going to be a city-based franchise competition, 2 teams in Ireland, 2 in Scotland, and 2 in the Netherlands. We're going to start off in year 1 going to be around mid-July, and we're going to go into the first week of August. And actually, we're going to be slotting in between. We're going to follow the end of the MLC, and we're going to go into the first week of August, which should have clear blue water before the 100 starts. If we go a couple of days in, that shouldn't be too much of an issue for us. But yeah, that's basically the overview. It's the first league that the ICC has approved, which is going to be across multiple jurisdictions, which I guess has the double-edged sword of being both unique, but also adding to the logistics and adding to the various requirements we have. But that's nothing which is making us particularly concerned. As far as we're concerned, the ICC has 1/3 of its members in the European region. And for us as Cricket Ireland, we conceived of the idea a number of years ago because a lot of our players, as were the Scots and the Dutch, simply weren't getting the really extensive opportunities in the big franchise leagues overseas. So for us, it's very much driven by a performance objective to ensure that our players have the opportunities to be playing with and against the best teams in the world, as the majority of the other more mature full members are able to do in big franchise leagues.
Yeah, Abhishek, you've been involved in the investment of a lot of other sports. Actually, I've just seen on my TV. I think is it the Kabaddi World Cup's going on at this moment in time. So you've invested in Kabaddi. You've gone into the sort of Indian Super League from the football point of view. Why cricket? I know India's obviously massive with cricket, but just give us an overview of why you've decided that this is the right time not only to invest in cricket, but this project alone.
Yeah, great question. So obviously being Indian, we're all cricket obsessed. Cricket is the #1 sport. I've always wanted to be involved in sports apart from my acting that I do. About 10 to 12 years ago is when I started my journey of sports entrepreneurship, and started with Kabaddi in the Pro Kabaddi League, and then bought a team in the Indian Super League, which is our premier football tournament that we have in India. 2 years ago, we invested in the Indian Street Premier League, which is a first of its kind tennis ball cricket league, gully cricket as we call it in India, of which we're the current champions. I own the Mumbai team in that. And obviously the quest was to work my way up into cricket. For me, investing in a sport is about, trying to make a difference and trying to be able to contribute in whatever way possible. In India, I think cricket is very sorted. There isn't much room for, what can I do to help and increase any sort of footprint at all. But over here, I think with the European T20 League, we had the potential to be able to make a difference to the cricketing ecosystem and franchise league ecosystem around Europe. So that's why cricket, and that's why the European T20 League.
I'm not quite sure. I've got 2 questions and I don't know who to direct them to, so I'll just ask them and you can decide. Abhishek, I saw that you were quoted quite recently in another interview saying that some T20 leagues had not succeeded because they overpriced themselves. I think you were implying that they were overambitious. But you also said in that same interview that we might be surprised at how big some of the names are who've expressed an interest in buying the teams. I don't know whether the team auction's taken place yet, and also sponsoring the league. And the second question is, a lot of our listeners and viewers won't know that 34 of the 108 member countries of the ICC are European. So, is the idea to will they be predominantly Scottish, Irish, and Netherlands players? But is it also an opportunity to give players from, I don't know, Germany, Guernsey, Jersey?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think what's unique about the European T20 League after we got the ICC sanction is obviously, as you said, close to a third of all the ICC countries are from Europe. And the idea is to get all of them involved in the European T20 League. And what we have set out is that you have to have 7 local players and 4 international overseas players. But of those 7, you can use them from associate countries in Europe. So you're actually giving a platform to most of the European cricket playing nations to be able to give their local players an opportunity to come and play in a world-class tournament. Therein, hopefully, giving rise to a lot more cricketing talent from countries which are not historically renowned to have cricketing talent. So yes, we do look upon it as that opportunity. And that's one of the things that really excited me. Was to be able to give a lot of smaller cricket playing nations the opportunity and platform to give their players, a team in which they can play alongside some of the world's greatest cricketers, be coached by some of the world's greatest coaches, and work under some of the best team owners in the cricketing world.
I think that's probably more for Warren, because obviously coming from the sort of the Irish side, I mean, are you looking to build the infrastructure of these areas as well? Because me and Manners, whenever we talk to anybody from the emerging nations or players, coaches, administrators, I've always believed that the way we promote cricket in Ireland and Scotland and the Netherlands is that they should have a test match every year instead of the touring side, which will be India this year. They come and play in one of them nations in a one-day series or a test match series, to make sure that they're still promoting cricket in Europe. It's a better preparation. It grows the international world, and it stops in the test team that comes to England playing against a county second 11. So it's promoting the world. We've also got to have the infrastructure. You've got to have the grounds. You've got to have the facilities. Are the facilities going to be there to attract not only the best teams to come and play and give them the best facility, but also the best players as well? Because I'm assuring that you're looking to bring in some big names.
Yeah. And look, to answer your first one first, Steve. So when we sit down and arrange the FTP, I mean, the one before last, it was relatively straightforward because we had this thing called the World Cup Super League, which meant that everyone played each other, or was supposedly meant to play each other, but then it was, as you know, it was scrapped. So last time round, what's the first conversation I have and my team have? It's go to speak to, well, it used to be John Carr, all the guys from ECB, and say, right, who's touring through England? And as you know, the dance card of both India, England, and Australia get filled up first. So that's the most sensible conversation to have first. Who's coming through? Because New Zealand doesn't want to tour to England in 2026 and then have to come up to England or to Ireland in 2027. Obviously, it's very expensive. So that's what we do there. Infrastructure, I would say, so the day after we became a full member in 2017, I did a speech in Dublin that said, do not expect that tomorrow we're going to look like a full member. We're not going to suddenly have stadiums all over the place. We're not going to have a treble the size of our playing footprint who can suddenly participate and be on the radar of the international coaches. It will take time, and it has taken time. But the beginning of this year, the Irish government put in its programme for government over the next 5 years that not only will the Irish government support our co-hosting the T20 World Cup in 2030, but on the back of that, it will construct a stadium. So that stadium is going to be in place now by 2029. We're going to start building. We're going through all the planning at the moment. The green stuff is going to be built in 2026. Well, I'd say it's going to take 2 to 3 years for all of that to properly settle and lay with all the claims and the loans. And we'll be playing international cricket a year in advance of the World Cup in 2030. We're using the same principles to work with the Northern Ireland executive. We've got more infrastructure in our ground in Belfast, called the Northern Ireland Civil Service Sports Association. And we're working with the Northern Ireland executive to make sure that more investments can come on the back of hosting the World Cup. So that's a long response to a yes.
Yeah, but and I think the point I was trying to sort of come to, and probably more for Abhishek, is that if you're going to invest in this tournament and you're going to try and bring in investment from everywhere else, the visual point of view is the visual part of it has got to be very good, because you want something to look good. So if the tournament is played on a park field and there's nothing really there, it doesn't have the same grandeur as a franchise tournament that's played in other parts of the world. So I think what I'm trying to say is, are the nations getting their houses in order to make sure the stadiums are in place to not only attract good players, but the facility will be such that it's going to be, from a visual point of view, a great tournament for other investment to come in.
Yeah, look, there's a bit of chicken and egg about these things. So when we became a full member, we thought that the very fact that we were a full member hosting cricket nations in the FTP was going to automatically get the government to invest. It's the cost of infrastructure, Steve, it's tens of millions, hundreds of millions. These things don't shift on a dime, particularly where cricket nations aren't established as major sports. So we became a test nation back in 2017, and it's taken us the best part of about 7 to 8 years to get the government to invest at this stage. And it's through things like having World Cups in place, through things, the potential for the T20 Premier League to come along. If you think about the amount of money it takes, governments aren't going to invest like that, particularly, you're now suddenly in an environment whereby there are going to be tariffs imposed between the European Union and the US. Every government's got to make investment decisions. So for the Irish Cricket Island to have convinced our government to spend 8-9 figures worth to invest in cricket is a massive seismic thing for us. So that's huge. And obviously what happens is you've got to construct the product first. You've got to prove the concept first to say, I'll tell you what, you have managed to bring in thousands of fans. You have managed to bring in lots of people from overseas. I tell you what, now you're worth investing in. So we've now crossed that barrier with the Irish government. And I have no doubt that on the back of the success that we expect the European T20 Premier League to have, that same waterfall effect is going to happen in both Scotland and in the Netherlands.
Yep.
Very good.
Okay, can we talk money, which I know is close to both of you? Warren, having used part of or all of your life savings at one point to keep Cricket Island afloat, and Abhishek, you've said that I think you described your involvement in professional sport as a hobby, albeit a very expensive one. I think it's moved on from being a hobby now. But you said it was expensive. But I mean, you're obviously very good at running teams as well. I mean, you won the Pro Kabaddi League with the Jaipur Pink Panthers and the Indian Super League with your Chennai team. So yeah, it's personal money for both of you, or has been, or is. And I just mentioned all those competing leagues that people will say you're up against, but this is different, isn't it? Actually, you're not competing with the 100 or the Caribbean Premier League. This is a completely different market. I'm thinking money from the Denmark Tourism Board or the Italian Tourism Board.
Is it personal money? Yes, it is. That's the way I like to work. I get personally and emotionally invested in whatever I do. That's the only way I know how to work. And it's served me well so far. I mean, in the last decade or so, it served me well. And that's the energy that I bring. As far as the second part of your question, yes, I don't think they're not competing in that sense, because the timing is very different. It's demarcated. And plus, it's a different market altogether. And God willing, tomorrow we are able to make this into an immensely popular tournament. You're going to see teams coming up from several different countries as well, which is what we were asked before, and that is the long-term plan of the ETPL. That just broadens your horizons and your market even further. So yes, like I said, the potential is there. Is there a lot of work to be done? Absolutely. But anything that you start from the bottom up, there is a lot of work to be done, but it's important to have the people that are invested in it to have the right attitude. And I do believe we have a team in partnership with Cricket Ireland who see the long-term project and want to achieve the long-term project. So yes, I think we're all good so far.
And I think just finally from me, I was watching an interview with Sir Sebastian Coe, Lord Sebastian Coe, yesterday, who I think is he's in the running to be the Olympic the Olympic chairman in the next, I think Thursday, I think it is. That's when they have the voting for that process. But cricket is in the Olympics in 2028. How important is it? Because there's a lot of Olympic nations you're covering here. Your European Super League is covering a lot of nations where we don't know what the Olympic blueprint is going to look like. Could this be an avenue to go, right, hold on, this tournament is getting better and better, and we are now making our competitors are pushing our teams towards potential Olympic qualification as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a fantastic incentive for everybody. Look, the Olympics are the Olympics. Having said that, there's the cricket playing nations already know the potential of cricket and what it can bring. With that, and then going to the Olympics, I think the world becomes your new horizon after that, and you're going to get many other nations who are going to say, "Hey, wait a second, if we may not have the talent currently to play in the apex tournaments that are privately run, but if we can get a cricketing team, then we want to enter the Olympics. Let's start pumping money into cricketing infrastructure because this is a sport we'd like to build up." Just to give you a small anecdote, before coming to Dublin, I was in Tashkent, Uzbekistan for a film festival where a movie of mine was premiering. But I met the Tashkent men's and women cricket team, the Uzbeki men and women cricket team. And, one of the conversations that came up, and they're building their own cricket stadium now. And this is a nation which is known for wrestling and boxing.
Yeah.
No, I think they're possibly the best in the world. They churn out gold medal after gold medal. And one of the conversations was, "Hey," I said, "how come cricket?" They're like, "No, we obviously we have great ties with India and so on and so forth, but it's going to become a Olympic sport, so we want to start working on it right now." And that was very reassuring for me because it goes to show that smaller cricketing nations aspire to not only qualify for the Olympics, but then once you qualify for the Olympics, you're creating talent that can come and play in the ETPL as well. So yes, I definitely feel it's related, and cricket becoming an Olympic sport is going to be a huge boon.
And I can tell you as well, Steve, is a really good question, because the currency that the Olympics has in a nation like Ireland, which has done so well in the Olympics, I think it's per head of a population, it's got more gold medals, or it's like second and third in the global table. And the Olympics are specifically mentioned off the back of the press release that the government put out last year when it said it was giving the green light to beginning to do tendering for our national stadium. So, we became a member of the Olympic Federation of Ireland last year. We're going for full membership this year. Suddenly, it just raises the profile of the sport. We've always kind of fallen between the big three team sports here in Ireland: Gaelic games, rugby and football, and the Olympic family. We're now a member of the Olympic family, and it's just giving us that extra impetus in terms of visibility and government recognition. And that's in an established test nation. It's going to have even more of an impact in the likes of the Netherlands and those other European nations Abhishek was talking about.